Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a WMedia Studios interview. With me, I have Clement Goh and Wong. We are going to be discussing the topic, where is the Singapore data center industry heading, and will Singapore lose its status as a data center hub in Southeast Asia? So obviously those are quite controversial statements to begin with. I'll start this off with the first question, which is, in the wake of the moratorium, other countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines have begun to expand their presence in the region significantly. What can Singapore do to maintain its status as the regional hub for Southeast Asia? And Clement, I'd like to turn to you first.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you, WMedia, for having me. Well, I think even without the moratorium, it is inevitable that some of the workload will go to the regional countries. Main reason is because as the users in those countries grows, it makes sense for the service provider to provide those services onshore for latency purposes, also to reduce costs. However, obviously the moratorium has accelerated that process. And if you look at where we are positioned in Singapore, I think we just need to reinvent ourselves. It will continue to be the digital hub because a lot of the subsea cable terminates here. What we need to do differently is to improve the connectivity between the neighboring countries and ourselves, and to run different type of workloads in Singapore. And you'll see that change coming. I think AI is going to drive some of those changes. You see that a lot of the power hungry, the AI training module, those can be run outside of Singapore, but a lot of the R&D, the research, the data scientists, all these folks will still be operating from Singapore, and then the processes and the IP transit will still come through Singapore. Pretty much like our airport. The Singapore airport is a hub, but not a lot of traveler coming through is going to stay in Singapore for holiday. They will go to Phuket, they will go to Bangkok. It's a transit point. And we'll continue to, even for the digital traffic is going to behave the same way.
And Kevin, your thoughts?
Okay, from my point of view, Singapore position is for us to lose. Absolutely in our own control. So it nothing depends on the moratorium. The moratorium is a wake-up call. I'm the biggest supporter of the moratorium 7-8 years ago in my own industry. I believe some of my colleagues disagree with me, but I believe the moratorium acts as a massive wake-up call for the data center industry in Singapore to rethink our agenda collectively. Okay, so let me put that to rest first. So it's ours to lose and ours to continue to hold on to. Depends on the action the industry takes in the next 5 to 10 years, okay, to ensure that leadership is maintained. In the next 5 to 10 years, our leadership as a data center hub, let me use the right word, is not dependent on connectivity alone. It cannot be. The world has evolved. Our customer has rapidly evolved. So Clement made a very good point, and I'm going to focus on that one point, because the trouble is that we have a tendency to cloud ourselves with a lot of matrix. The key differential that's going to happen to our customers, not us, is the advent of artificial intelligence. That has a massive impact on computing technology. We host computers. What if the computing platform of the future, will it look similar to the one that we see today? It's not. I guarantee you it's not. We already know it's not. And I'm going to mention one word here. The future of AI cannot be handled by GPUs alone. Massive parallel computer, we cannot do it. One reason, we are not working on the same data structure. AI is working on neural network structure, completely different from standard computing. So what's the technology in the future? It's already here. Quantum computers. Quantum computers will be required if we are to move forward, make significant headway in applying AI. So I'm going to put that topic squarely in front of everyone here. Let's not muck around and talk about all kinds of all kinds of things that will cloud us. Let's focus on what is really impactful. And that's what Singapore is good at. So I believe we will be the quantum computer data center hub of Asia. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll move on to another topic which is slightly closer. Obviously, the future is where we're going with the quantum computing. But for now, I'm interested to ask, which do you think is the bigger challenge to face at the moment? Would it be the lack of new building space in Singapore, or would it be sourcing energy for the existing structures that we've got in Singapore? Kevin, I'll start with you this time. Yeah.
Oh, I get it. Oh, okay. Okay, that's an easy question. There's not. Singapore is a small country, but we have enough land, absolutely enough land, and by no stretch of the imagination are we going to run our land for data center. And I don't care whether it's Johor Bahru or Batam. We have enough land. Okay. What we also have, it may be a surprise to all here, I believe we have oodles of power. But there's one thing we do not have. We have no renewable power. And therein lies the most critical challenge, the near-term challenge we have for the data center industry in Singapore is renewable power. Again, be ultra-focused, be razor-focused on what our challenge is. Let's not distract ourselves about PUE, 1.3, efficiency. It doesn't matter. The thing that matters in the future for our customers is, gentlemen, how long will it take for you to bring me renewable power? Because the carbon tax is coming. And if you don't have renewable power, this is now simple economics. It's not even, I want to be a socialist do-gooder and I want to save the world. It's nothing to do with save the world anymore. It's economics. Because if you don't have renewable power, your cost of power is going to go significantly up because I'm going to top up carbon tax. We've seen it happen in Europe, and it will be happening here in Asia.
I agree with Kevin. I think that our biggest issue is renewable power and not space or land. And it is something that, obviously the geography, where we are located, in Singapore, is not helpful. We need to somehow work with the neighboring countries. There's a lot of G2G initiative that we need to work on in order to allow us to get supply on renewable power. I think that's the key focus that the whole industry need to work on.
And keeping on the idea of renewable power, I just want to ask, what innovations do you think the data center industry could look at in terms of its own implementation that could sort of assist that? Obviously, there's a lot of conversation around submersible racks and the sort of technologies. Do you feel that would make an impact, or does it have to go further than that?
I think from a technology standpoint, you can only get you so far. Honestly, you can reduce, but you cannot eliminate. And the problem is that with all this new application that's coming online, how much can you reduce? I mean, you reduce, but yet then there's additional usage, additional application that's coming online. So I think, in the longer term, we still need to find renewable power.
Kevin, do you have something to add?
But I'm going to bring the bear out in the front again, okay? Yes, it's renewable power. Let's not dance around the issue. We know solar is pretty, wind is great, but it's not going to work in Singapore. We just don't have the geography to provide enough, right? So we are down to 2. And it's not about power. The real bear here that we got to deal with is something more dangerous. It's fuel. We are looking at renewable fuel. Okay, let me go down to the basic. Fuel has been a process of war throughout the history of the world. So we are now fighting for fuel, not power. With the right fuel, I can get renewable power. So there are two fuels that we can work with in Singapore. Beyond that, we have no chances. Number one is hydrogen. It's available all over the world, and all over us it's available. So hydrogen is one. And the other one that no one wants to talk about, and I'm going to bring it to the table, because that's the most efficient fuel, and is atomic, nuclear fuel. And we're not talking about the current nuclear technology. We're talking about nuclear technology that will come online 5 to 10 years from now. And we are maybe talking about fusion, not fission, that which the Europeans, the English are working on, the Americans are working on. This is safe nuclear. So let's bring that bear to the table to discuss. These are all possibility. If we cover our eyes, then we're not doing justice again to development in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you. And talking to the sort of broader spectrum, what innovations do you think would act as incentives to recapture interest in the Singapore market? And how do you think the landscape will shift compared to other markets in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I think the architecture will change, the workload will shift. I think Singapore can continue to be attractive to be the R&D test bed for some of those new technology that we spoke about. And the workload that are not data sensitive, because of whether it's data sovereignty, whether it's data residency challenges, those can be done outside of Singapore, and processes can still be done within the country. So I think if you look at that shift, the architecture will change, and the network architecture for most of our hyperscalers and cloud service provider will also then adopt accordingly.
And Kevin, your thoughts?
The shift, as Clement brought out, has been happening over the last 5 years, and that shift will continue to take shape in every form that we can think of. And that shift is not going to be visible to the ordinary man in the street. It is already happening. The only thing that impede or that moderate the speed of that change in organization taking advantage of the current technology, cloud, is government policies. So if government wants to do something and they believe that it's important, then there need to be massive review of relevant policy that will accelerate that change, right? So the only inhibitor that I see in the way, I think private industry is ready. We are ready. We've been ready for a long, long time. So it is about moderating, modifying, and improving intergeography governmental policy to accelerate this shift.
There's one point I want to make. I'm not sure anyone here realize when you look at the CFA award, the 4DC that won the award, I'm not sure whether it's coincidental or not. All of them have data center plan in Johor. So, it's quite coincidental that, they have DC in Singapore and in Johor. Maybe, the workload shift is happening.
Just as
I didn't see that one. That's a good one.
Just as a final question to wrap up then, because we're obviously talking about policies changing, how do you think data sovereignty acts will have to adapt and change and evolve, obviously with Singapore sort of working more as an interconnecting hub?
Yeah, you want to open that Pandora.
I just had that 1 hour discussion with Kevin 2 days ago.
I think there's my personal belief, there's a massive miscommunication among industry and among data center operator. We gyrate to a common a term that we feel comfortable with, and we call it data sovereignty. But honestly, guys, what does it? Let me try not to swear. What does it mean?
Hot mic,
What-
hot mic.
Yeah, what does it mean, right? Actually, the real concern is not data sovereignty, but we gyrate to this thing called data sovereignty, and that confuses government to they even make more confusion. What we are talking about is trans-border data movement. Like people, data needs to move about in the digital economy. Data are moving trans-border. We need visa. The data need visa to go back and forth. Human being is the thing that move about in the physical economy. We are well defined to know how to move human beings around. Right now, we need to move data around properly. And that's the issue. It's not data sovereignty. Data sovereignty is well defined in all the Southeast Asian economy. It's not PDPA. It's all well defined. But moving data and giving data visa to go from Singapore to KL or Johor, and then Johor back to Singapore, that is what we need.
And Clement,
I
final
think
thoughts?
while saying that there are obviously certain sensitive information, and there are what we call data residency control, right? Say for example, government information, financial data of customers, those you have to watch where you put those information. Yeah. Other than that, I think the rest of the information should be able to move freely. It's just how do you track them? When you move those information, how do you track them?
All right.
An example of exactly what Clement say. So if I'm a digital bank, and as a digital bank, I don't have a fixed data center. I have data center all over the world. But what I can do is that if I'm operating in Singapore, I can tell the monetary authority that my database is going to be stored at a data center that have cloud infrastructure in Singapore. My transactional application could be sitting in Johor Bahru. I will send a piece of information to Johor Bahru to process and return. But the information will always return back to the database. The transaction could be poof, gone. So as long as we can explain that process in a logical and meaningful sense, I believe the data sovereignty issue, let me use back the word, is not an issue.
Well, thank you very much both for your time. I think we covered quite a few points there. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.